right, howdy. So I'm Colton Kuno. I'm the one who's been grading y'all's papers. So there's never been a VBA review session, so I've never done a review session, so I hope this goes well. Today, I'm going to tell y'all just like for 5 minutes or so about why this class exists and some applications, and then we'll do the second practice exam together. And then I made a study list for y'all and advice for Valdez's exams. By the way, how was the first one? Like, yeah? Nobody had any trouble? Nobody got caught up with the wording or anything like that? Yeah? No, here, what did I call it in here? I said this class is about, translating verbal objectives into machine language instructions. So like, when you're at your employer, they're not going to say, I want you to do it this way, this way, this way. They're just going to say, I want that. And you have to figure out how to tell the computer how to do it. So it is, sometimes, it can be a little ambiguous, but that's how it's going to be. So this probably is y'all's first job, applicable course, like something with DiffyQ, like, if you forget something, you're going to have to go all the way back to the beginning to relearn everything. And at that point, it's like, if you're in your job, you're probably just going to ask somebody else. But with VBA, you can Google it. Probably every question y'all will have has been answered online on a forum somewhere. And regardless of what you do, Excel is going to be there. So I made that comment on somebody's feedback on their homework and I left. So one of the things, I interned with Walmart this past summer, and one of the little prerequisites for my project was I had to figure out how many little boxes you can put into a big box. So this algorithm actually took me about 2 weeks to make, but basically, so if you take a box and you set it on a flat surface, it's bad because it's round, but you can rotate it 90 degrees, and so that's 2. And then since there's 3 sides to it, that's 6 different orientations that you can put a box in. And so what this algorithm does is for each orientation, it packs them in there in the corner as many as you can with that orientation. So at this point, you can't pack any more in here. But obviously there's still usable space in there, so that needs to be taken advantage of. But see how it's like that weird oblong region that's not rectangular like the shape we're trying to put in there? So the way to fix that is there's 8 different ways that you can divide that up into little smaller regions that are rectangular. And so 6 orientations, 8 different ways you can slice it, so we're at 48 combinations now. And so that leaves 3 leftover regions, so 144. And then treating each leftover region like the original one with another 6 orientations, 864 different combinations that this algorithm does. So it takes 1 initial orientation, the slicing, and then 3 more orientations. And so, I came up with that on my own, and then later figured out that, of course, it's been done before. But, so does anybody have any questions? Any general questions? Any immediate stuff? Nothing? Have y'all done the practice exam yet? Dabbled? Maybe? Okay. By the way, how's the grading on the homework? Y'all think it's fair? Sweet. Okay. So where's my developer? So how y'all submitted the first exam is not going to be how you submit this one. For some reason, the technology people, whatever, hadn't had this little temp thing. So you're going to submit it in this little temp folder, and it's going to be kind of confusing at first, but y'all figure it out. You're not going to have internet this time, so whoever emailed Valdez during the exam, don't do that again. Oh, yeah. If I can figure that out.
Cool? Yes, that's a lot better.
So ideally, if y'all are doing this on homework or whatever, you'd, read through the whole problem and you'd understand every step before you actually started. so you didn't make a mistake. But on a time test, I found that the best way to do it is just to start diving in, and if you have to go back, you go back. So at the instructions, this problem is to test your knowledge of using formula R1C1 with relative and absolute addressing. Place a command button that calls the sub exp smoothing. So the first one, clear cells in column C. Obviously, y'all can do that. Oh, sorry, column C. And I'm recording this, by the way, so I'll post it probably on my YouTube channel after. Write the word predicted. Okay, so it says using offset from the anchor, so that means we're going to have an anchor. Write the word predicted. Any number of months and should change prediction when sales numbers in column B change or when a different alpha value in cell E2 is entered. So that is your keyword to know that you're using R1C1, because if you do it with a variable, obviously it's not going to change because you'll have to run the sub again. So it says smoothing constant alpha is located in cell E2. So we'll just remember we're doing formulas right now, so we don't need to store that in a variable. So on to the next one. Place formulas using R1C1 in column C to calculate the predicted sales as follows. So this is what we're doing here. So if y'all, when I first did this problem, I didn't even notice that it was I plus 1. So we're calculating the next one by the previous month. So basically, this one's really simple. If y'all can, here I'll show y'all what's in there. So. Are y'all aware that you can paste entire formulas into like a range and not just a cell? Yeah, cool. So note that the last monthly predicted cell is 1 month past the last month of the column data. So now we need to find out how many we're doing. So doing n. Oh, sorry. So it says for the first month, predicted cell in C2 is equal to the actual cell in B2. So we're just going to copy that over there. And that's in E. So there's almost definitely going to be an R1C1 question on the test. These Valdez's practice exams are pretty similar to the actual test. RC minus 1. So let's go put that in there, and so now we need to calculate all of these, or this column right here, past, or C3 to C7. So finding how many we're doing, n equals range. So now we need to calculate C3 on down, 1 past the last row. So we're going to do range. One of the things to think about in these exams is, like, if he doesn't explicitly say you have to do something, you don't have to do it. He's not going to penalize you for it. So the way I would do it is to C2 So n right now is going to equal 5. So if we're doing this range right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I would just go right on down to 5. So now we need to worry about the formulas. So formulas dot formula R1C1 equals. So for this C3, it's going to be alpha, which is right here. So that would be R minus 1. Or no, sorry, so that's not changing. So we can just say R, what is that? 2, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Times sales of the past one. So that would be this cell right here. So to the left one and up one. Plus 1 minus alpha times the predicted of the last month. So that's right up here. That's just RC, or sorry, R minus 1C. So if that comes out right, that should be it. And that's really all this problem is. Is that D? No, it's not D. So let's see what happens. N is 5, yep. Formulas. Yep. So yeah, that's right. Any questions on that one? So
what would be like the point breakdown for each of those parts for that problem?
Let's see. I would say clear cell is a point, right predicted a point, code should work for any number of ranges, 2 points. I mean, really, this is where all of the vast majority of the points are going to come from, right here and right here. Because it's, I mean, if you look at it, it says, problem is to test your knowledge of R1C1. So, all right, next one, cool. This R1C1 stuff, it's just, you're just going to have to practice and step through it. It's just repetition. There's no real, no hard concepts in it. So this problem is the one that is probably going to trip y'all up. So I asked Valdez what I should cover in this, and he said the concepts that are covered in this problem. So sub, place the command button that calls a sub named lottery. So A, clear all cells. B, define a variable, a variant variable named varhist and assign the values, whatever, to varhist using the array function. So we're going to say dim varhist as variant and varhist. This array function is in your form or the formula sheet that he gives y'all. 250, 500, 750. He's not going to like throw some random like, I don't know, I was trying to find the function for used range, which is like the smallest range that occupies all of the used cells in the worksheet. And I had to Google it. He's not going to ask you stuff like that. If it's not on the formula sheet and it's something weird like that, don't worry about it. So then define an integer array named intcint or int count, and using the UBahn function of varhist variable defined above, dynamically dimension the int count array to have as many elements as the varhist variable plus 1. So we're going to say dim int cint as integer, redim UBahn var hist plus 1. So we got that out of the way. Have an input box that asks for a 3-digit winning lottery and capture it in a string variable. So dim winner. So when I did this problem, I spent probably, I don't know, 10 minutes making sure that winner was 1 numeric, 2, 3 digits long, as in it can't be 5.2 or whatever. And yeah, so like it doesn't say that in there, so don't bother with it. So now we're going to write it in cell A1 and B1 the text winning lottery number. So not particularly, he just asks for it sometimes. So the code will then generate a ticket with a set of 3 random numbers between 0 and 9 using the Excel function ran between and concatenate them into a string variable. So we're going to have dim ticket as string. And there's 2 ways to do this. You can do a for loop and concatenate them that way, or you can just type it out 3 times. I like the loop just because I don't have to type as much. Ticket will be written in the next blank cell in column A. So right away, if you were just going through doing these step by step, you'd see that and you do like a dot end whatever. But on the first one, we only have 1 in here, so you do dot end and it goes down to infinity. So skip that for now. So the array int count defined in part C will keep track of the number of tickets in the ranges. That is the first element of the array int count. Will count the tickets greater than 0 and less than the first value, and the second will count the tickets greater than the first and less than the second value of our hist. So this is a histogram, and this is what Dr. Valdez was talking about. So it's basically saying int count, 0. First of all, do y'all know about option base 1 and 0? Yeah, do y'all use that? Yeah, so right now, var hist 0 equals 250, and var hist 1 equals 500, var hist 2 equals 750. To me, that's just, like, I don't know why that exists. So I'm just going to go ahead and put option base 1. So now, var hist 1 is 250, 2 is 500, and 3 is 750. So it's a lot more intuitive. If you're looping through, you're probably going to type I equals 1, just because you're so used to doing it. So now that won't be an issue. So we have to go through, so we generate a ticket and we have to see if it's where it is in relation to these 3. So like with the this past homework, when y'all were trying to find if you had multiple ones that had the same total distance, you took the one with the lowest one. The easiest way to do that is just to count upwards. So you start, and if it's less than 250, you hit it and you get out. And if it's not less than 250, you check if it's less than 500, which we already said it's not less than 250, so if it is less than 500, then it means it's between 2. So we're going to go through and check where it is in that. So we know there's 3 in, so up here it says, the program should work with those numbers are changed to more or fewer numbers are put into the array function. So he's basically just saying use the UBahn function. So we're going to check if it's less than the first one. So it's just saying like, here, I'll do, it's just saying the upper limit of var hist. So
Go from 1 to the size of the
yeah.
and then
So if we didn't put this option-based 1 and we put UBahn var hist, it would say 2. Yeah. So if ticket is less than var hist I, then, and we're keeping track of them in the int count. So int count I equals int count I plus 1. So this is really what he was talking about with that, because like he was saying that students will type like if it's less than var hist 1, and then if it's less than var hist 2 and greater than 1, and they'll go through and check every option. Well, you can't do that if you're going to change all these, so you're going to have to loop it. And so this is going to go through and it's going to say if it's less than 250, then we're going to add 1 to int count, but it's also going to loop back. And it's going to check if it's less than 500, which if it's less than 250, it's obviously less than 500. So if we get in there and we add 1, we're going to exit the for loop so that we don't do that again. And so at this point, it's going to say, it's going to count up, and it's going to count, is it less than 250, is it less than 500, is it less than 750? But this last part over here says, since we have int count is dimensioned 1 more than the upper bound of var hist, this, so the last one is going to keep track of the number that are greater than the last value. So if we come through here, we can check, we can just say if ticket is greater than var hist, the last value is going to be the upper bound. So this is going to get checked every time, but regardless of, since like we're checking if it's less than whatever these, so obviously if we do one of those, it's not going to be bigger than the last one. So we don't need to have that in an exit for or whatever. We're good with that. So now, all right, that was H. Just somewhere there. Oh, we didn't even write ticket in the next blank column. Okay. So since H that I skipped, or G that I skipped, is right in the next blank column, so we know that we're going to be generating tickets, multiple of them, but we don't have any right now. So we need some way to be able to put it in the bottom one, and we can't do .end because on the first one it won't work. So we're going to have to count how many times we do it. So at this point we don't really know how to do that yet, so we're going to keep going on. So now it says that the ticket generated in part F is not equal to the winning lottery number in cell A1. Parts F through H are repeated until a winning ticket is generated. So are repeated until a winning ticket is generated. So that means you're going to have to keep doing it until a condition is met. So that's a do loop. So we're going to come up here. I'm going to put F. I'll put the thing in there. We're going to do F through H. Do. So now, are repeated until, so we're going to say loop until ticket equals, what do we call it, winner. All right, so we got that down. So we'll then write in column A and skipping one line after the last ticket generated the number of tickets that had to be generated to get a winning ticket. So now we know we're going to have to know how many we did. Or we can just count how many we wrote in here. So if this took 100 tickets generated to equal the winner, then we would know that it's 100. But also we can just count how many we wrote in here because we are, where are we writing it in there? Oh, we didn't even write it in. Oh, that's right. Okay, so that means since we have to write in the last one, we can't use a dot end, we're going to have a counter. So I'm going to type in here dim so I don't know, can anybody tell me what is going to go wrong here? No? Okay, so if we go through this a bunch of times, ticket is going to just keep getting added numbers onto it every time. So it's going to be, you know, a mile long by the time we get it. So we're going to have to empty it out every repetition. So we don't want it to ever be longer than 3 characters. So we're just going to type that. So every time we run through it, it's blanked out, and then we add 3 digits onto it. Am I going too fast? Anybody have any questions? No? So, that was I.
Wait, could you review what you just did?
Which part?
The emptying it out.
The ticket?
Yeah.
So it's like, so we're saying do all of this in a do loop, and we're generating ticket. We're concatenating a number between 0 and 9. We're tacking it on the end of ticket. So if we come through this like 100 times, if it takes us, because these are random numbers, yeah, so we got to empty it out every time. Well, it's a string variable, so you just be adding, or you just be saying 0. So I mean, you could do string functions if you wanted to, but it's easier just to type blank. So now this part that we were having trouble with, we need to write that in the last num. So now we got a counter. So we can say so first we generate 1 ticket, we write it here, 2 tickets here. So we can say skipping 1 line after. Well, we know we wrote at least 1 in here, so we can use the .end function. We know we wrote ticket into cell A2, at least A2. So we can just go range A1 .end, fill down, and then skipping a line. So 20 equals number of tickets. So that would be our counter variable. That's how many times we went through this loop. That was what? J. Then he wants us to also write tickets to win in there. Okay, so now we've got our histogram, which is what this is, and we have our var hist. So now he wants us to write it in the worksheet over here. So we're going to say, so that means we have to have a loop since we have a array. So for I equals 1 to UBahn var hist, because we got to do the if he comes in this code and changes, adds another number onto here, it has to still work. UBahn var hist, he wants us to write it starting in cell D2. So range, we're going to offset by I, so starting in D1. And then he also wants us to write the int cint, is that what it was? Yeah, in E2, the values of int count. So range, same thing with this, dot offset I0 equals int count I. So he gives you a hint in here, it says the number of elements in the array int count will be 1 more. So UBahn var hist doesn't equal UBahn int count, so we have to write the last cell in there. So after we've written these values in, we have values in here, so we can just use the .end function on it. So range E1 .end. offsetting one more. And so yeah, that's the entire problem. Yeah. I think that should work. Let's try it. Let's see, problem 2. So the thing with this do loop in here, did anybody have a do loop on the exam and it crashed on them? Oh wait, y'all haven't done do loops. Never mind. Anyway, that is a really big hazard. It's like if you haven't saved in 10 minutes and on an exam and it crashes on you, you know, you hit and escape like crazy, but nothing's happening. Like it's bad. So one of the things we can do to prevent that is, since we already have this counter variable going in, so we have a 3-digit winning lottery number. So 3 digits between 0 and 9. So that's 10 times 10 times 10 different combinations for the winning lottery number. And we also have a ticket that's 10 times 10 times 10 different combinations. So multiply those together and it's like, I don't know, what is that? That many, that's the upper limit probability-wise that we would go through this do loop. But we can just say, like, if count equals, I don't know, what's the limit on integer values? It's like 32,768 or something like that. We'll say 32,000, then stop. So that way, if it keeps going in through here and for whatever reason we messed up, if this hits 32,000, we go through it 32,000 times, it's going to stop. So that way we know that we don't screw ourselves over. All right, so let's go ahead and step through it, and always step through do loops first because they're bound to cause you problems. So now we got var hist. Define that. Let's make sure that works. 250. Yep. Good on there. Now we define that. Winner. Writing that in there. So now we're starting the do loop. So ticket. Let's make sure this works. So now the first one we generated was 5, and now since we're concatenating, we're just slapping whatever this generates onto the end of it. So we go through it again. 56. One more time. 569. So now we need to check where it is comparing to var hist. So first one, we're going to check if it's less than 250. Well, it's not. So we're going to go to the next one. Is it less than 500? Still no. Is it less than 750? Yes. So we're going to add 1 to int count 3. That's keeping track of the ones between var hist 2 and 3. So we're going to add 1 there, and we're going to exit the 4. So does ticket equal, oh sorry, no, it's not greater than that. So loop until ticket equals winner. Well, it doesn't equal winner, so we're going to do it all again. So now we're setting the ticket equal to blank. Here, I'll take this out just so y'all can see what it does. So if we don't have that ticket equal blank, we go through this again, and now we get this really long number. Obviously, a 3-digit winning lottery number is never going to be there. So if we didn't have this and we hit the do loop and we didn't have a counter, you lost 2 problems worth. So we're going to say, just so we don't have any problems, we're going to say ticket equals that. So I just set ticket equal to 458 now. Which, by the way, if y'all aren't like really proficient with the immediate window, you should be, because it's super helpful in debugging. So now we're going to check where it is in var hist again. Is it less than 250? Nope, don't do it. Is it less than 500? Yes. So we're going to add 1 to int count 2, and we have to exit the 4. If we didn't exit the 4, it'd check if it's less than 750, which obviously it is. So we'd be wrong in that. And so we're going to go through again because it's not equal, and it's going to continue until we get down here. So hope that we did our do loop right and hit run. So a bunch of stuff happened. They wrote a bunch of values in. They wrote, what is that? 567, and that is also our count variable. So it's going to go dot end, offset 2, and write the counter in there. 567, and then one cell to the right, take us to win, yep. So now is the histogram part. So D2 is going to be var hist 1, which is 250. Yep, that's right. And int count the ones that are between 0 and 250 are 133. We're going to go ahead and pretend that, oh, that's not right. I'll offset I. So if y'all know that, like, going through a for loop, each time this line gets hit, it's going to add 1 to I. So we're only going to 3, so it's going to go 1, 2, 3, but it still hits this line coming back down. So I at this point is 1 more than this. So that'd be the upper bound of int count. So I'm just going to run it again so we can get that right. Okay, now that's too many. Well, that's clearly not right. So let's see why that is. Why is it doing that? Oh. It should be 1, right? Oh, E2. Alright, so that is our count. So you could go back here and like step through it and keep checking and just you get to a point where you just say, I'm pretty sure these numbers are right. But there's also an Excel function. You can do count if. And so we select the range we want. This function does, what it does is it says, it takes account if a condition is met. So you just do comma, less than 250. You have to do it in quotes. And so in this range, which this is our first ticket generated, all the way to the bottom, the number that are less than 250 is 22. So that looks good. So we can say, now we're going to check if they're between 250 and 500. I don't know if you can do multiple conditions in this function, but we can say, do what?
I don't add an S to the function.
S? Oh, count ifs? Oh, okay. Oh, neat. Cool. Do what? Oh. Okay. I don't know. The way I did it was I just said, if it's less than 500, minus the number that are less than 250, that'll be the number that's between 250 and 500. Assuming, I think he actually says inclusive in here. Yeah, greater than or equal to. So we didn't do that. So say less than equal to. So yeah, so this all looks good enough for me at this point. Y'all have any questions? There's some chatter. What's up? Yeah, you could do it up here if you wanted to. A do loop is really just, I mean, it's a for loop. So like I could put a for here and do for I equals 1 to 2 and then just step backwards. So it's never going to be met, and then I put a condition here. If the condition is met, then exit the for loop. So there's 100 different ways to do it. What's up? The what? That is if you set like, if we. So int count. So we declared int count as an integer variable, and the limit that the memory that a computer allocates for an integer variable can only hold. It it can go up or plus or minus 32,760 something, whatever. So if it goes beyond that, you'll get an overflow error. So we said that, I don't know, what was 10 to the 6? It was like a million or something. I can't imagine you'll generate more than 32,000 whatever. So there might be an error in there. But like that is an overflow error. I didn't realize that. That can be a counter too. So I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? Because this is like
Mine where it says int count I equals int count I plus 1 is saying it's debug out of range. I don't know if it's just me.
that might be something similar. I don't know. The cool thing about VBA is you Google it and somebody else had the same problem. So this is probably going to be. I mean, this is what, like you said, 35 points. Yeah, I actually took this exam when I took this class. So yeah, this definitely tripped me up. I can't remember what I did. I don't know. Any other questions? Did I go too fast? Kinda? No? Maybe? A little bit? Okay. Is there anything that I can elaborate on? Why I did something?
Do you have to use this for loop for concatenate tickets?
No, yeah, sorry, I didn't go back and do that again. So you can just do like, you say ticket equals this. You can just do it 3 times because this is going to spit out a number between 0 and 9. So you can just tack it on there, tack it on there. That's actually what Valdez does in the solution. I just. Does it affect the what?
Like the C, like how they're not using the same number.
The seed. You mean like the random number seed?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to worry about it. So maybe, probably not. I can't imagine so. VBA is not that technical into that. So
What's that last 22 on the
the what?
24th number on B?
That?
Yeah.
That's the number greater than 750. What's up?
When you did the rate dimension top. and
Hold on.
plus
She was talking.
Oh,
I just still don't understand what page count is. I got lost for that.
In count. Okay. So yeah. I don't know. Can I draw on this thing? No. Hey. Okay. So he's saying. So I mean, a lot of this test is just how fast can you interpret his somewhat ambiguous instructions. So it's saying code will generate, or the array int count and define part C will keep track of the number of tickets in the ranges that is whatever greater than or equal to 0 and less than the first value in var hist, so bigger than 0 and less than 250. And then the second element of int count, so int count 2 will count the number that's greater than 250 and less than 500. So it's a history. God, what is this nonsense? It's a histogram is what it is. So it's saying number here. How can I write all this? Greater than 0 and less than 250. Greater than 250, less than 500. And int count is how high this should go. So this is like count, whatever, like that. Yeah. So that, I mean, when I asked Valdez, he said histograms, because people go through and say, explicitly type in if ticket is greater than 0 and less than 250, which obviously you can't do. So that's, that right there is the majority of the question.
So I really don't understand int count I equals int count I plus 1. What does that actually mean?
So here, let's step through it. So right now, int count 2 is 0. We haven't found any that are between 250 and 500. So this value right here is 0. So we're adding 1 to it, so we hit it, and it added 1 to 0. So it's just adding 1 every time. So like, you got to think of this as an assignment. So we're saying int count 2, or set int count 2 plus 1 equal to the current value. I know that was like really bad wording.
You're saying in count position I?
Yeah, sorry. When I say int count 2, that means int count 2. Yeah. Is that clear?
I guess.
Yeah. You just play with it. You'll see it.
Oh, mine's not working, so it's,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Did he email y'all the solution?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's up?
Can you explain that, part where it says that if ticket is greater than various that in C? What was that for?
So we want to find, we're trying to find the number that's between two values. And so the easiest way to do that, instead of typing two constraints, is just to start from the bottom. And so we can assume that it's greater than 0 because it's generating numbers between 0 and 9. So we say, we're not going to check if it's
It's the lower one, the one after the next value.
this one? Oh, this one.
Yes.
Okay. So we go up to UBahn var hist, so we find number between 0 and 250, between 250 and 500, and between 500 and 750. But in the instructions, it says the last element of int count will count the tickets greater than the last value in var hist. So we're iterating I up to UBahn var hist, but we're using less than comparisons here. So it's only gonna count, or this is only, int count is only ever going to be incremented if it's less than a value of var hist. So we have to compensate for that, and that's what this is down here. So it's just saying if ticket is greater than the last value in var hist, then add 1 to the last value in int count.
Okay.
You had a question back there?
Yeah, when you redimensioned at the top, and when you added 1 to it, what was the plus 1 for?
That's just because he said to do it in the instructions. Where is it? Yeah. Dynamically dimension the int count array to have as many elements as the var hist variable plus 1.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, next one. So, worksheet variable problem 3, write a variant function named average interval using VBA. So, automatically we're doing a function. So we're going to say function average in interval, and it says the function average in interval should receive as argument two variables of type double. So type that in, we'll say, I don't know, x as double, y as double, and one variable of type range, and should return a variant. So we'll say RNG as range, and should return a variant. Say as variant? Yeah, it's as. Okay. So we got that out of the way. The two arguments of type double will correspond to two values, minimum and maximum, that define an interval of values. The argument with the range variable will be a range that points to the cells that contain the values to be averaged. So that's not, we don't need to write anything for that. So, function should use a for each loop to calculate the sum and the number of values in the range that are between the minimum and maximum values passed to the function. The function will return the average of the values in the range that are between the minimum and maximum values inclusive. So, is everybody familiar with for each loops with ranges? Yeah? Okay, so, yes, no? Y'all didn't do that? Okay, so that's super useful. It's basically saying you define a range and you don't have to type in like offset this many and that many and check each cell. You literally just type dim r, or whatever you want to call it as range, and you just say for each r in whatever your range is, like that. So our range is, I'll say, so what that's just saying is it's going to go through every single range, every single set, or every single cell in RNG input. So, is that clear? Does anybody have a question about that? Yeah. Okay. So now we need to say calculate the sum and the number of values in the range that are between the minimum and maximum values of the function. So I see that and I say, okay, well, what if there's a letter in there or something? And you try to compare it to a number, that's going to cause an error. So the next one says, if none of the values are passed to the function between the minimum and maximum, should return no values. Okay, whatever. If one of the variables is not a number, the function will return the text invalid number. Like, one of the really important things with VBA is, like, you got to make your stuff baby-proof. Like, you're going to give this to somebody and they're going to do something stupid that you never thought anybody would be so dumb to do. So you have to be prepared for it. So we know that we're going to compare to the minimum and maximum values, but comparing a non-number to another number is going to throw an error. So we need to check if it's a number first before we try to compare it to other numbers. So we'll say if is numeric r, then, so if it is a number, then we need to calculate the sum and the number of values. So that's the sum and the count, how many cells in the range have a value in it. So we need to have a variable for that. So we'll say sum as double and count as integer. So now it's numeric, so we can just go ahead and add that to our sum. So this is what you were talking about earlier, this little confusing little bit. It's just adding, what it is, it's saying sum equals the past sum plus a new
I
value.
get it when it's like that. I just didn't get it with the array.
Okay. Yeah, you just got to think of.
It's like just a spot in the array plus.
Yeah, cool. All right. And then it is a number, so we can add one to our count. And now we can compare it to the minimum and maximum values. We can say if r is greater than min and r is less than max, then, did it say inclusive? Yeah. So, oh, sorry, no, we don't want to add it to the sum. Not if it's, he doesn't want us to add it in if it's that are between the limits. So we don't want to do that quite yet. We gotta see if it's in the limits first. Paste that in there. And so the other conditions are, so we check if it's numeric, we compared it, we need to do something about if there's no values in the range, or if one of them isn't, or is an invalid number, which would mean is numeric. So if we find one that isn't numeric, then we have to do something. We have to, what do we have to do? Function should return the text invalid number. So regardless of what else we haven't done, or whatever other cells we haven't looked at yet, if we find one that's not a number, we just need to return invalid number. So this is, if we do find one, we say average in interval, which is the name of our function, equals invalid number. And we have to exit the function at that point. I think it's called exit function, is it? Yeah, okay. And when you do a for each loop with ranges, you don't put next r, you just put next. So that's going to go through each cell in the range, check if it's numeric. If it is it between the limits? If so, add to the sum and add to the count. If it's not numeric, then we're going to return invalid number and exit the function. But we haven't done anything about this no values yet. So if we go through every cell in there and there's nothing in there that has values in it, then we need to return no values. So what we can do is we can say we have a counter in here. So that means if count equals 0, then we return invalid number. Or sorry, no values. And y'all should really work on like just making your code easy to grade. Cause like, I mean, I do it too. Like if it runs and it looks good and you didn't hard code anything and he didn't say like explicitly you have to do it this way, that's good. So when it's like all tabbed weird and weird stuff, it's just like, I don't know. You'd like, people are human, right? It's less like I want to help this guy out. It's like screw this guy. So. So where's D? D is here. Invalid number is E. And no values is no values is D. And if y'all make an assumption in here, like back in here in the problem 2, when we didn't check if winner was valid, if it wasn't letters or whatever. He doesn't say to do that, but if you want to write in here, assuming the user enters 3 digits. So like this can really save you if you make an assumption and he says that's not really valid, but you don't declare it. Then he's going to think like you didn't understand the problem. So that should work. Let's see if it does. So we're going to say average in interval, which is our function. Our first one was min. Second one was max. And then our range. And it's 0.
You didn't set the average in interval.
Oh, duh, never mind. Okay. So if we have no values, we set it to 0, or sorry, set it to no values. Otherwise, that means we haven't hit an invalid number and we have something that we've summed, so average in interval equals sum divided by count. So now that's it. Oh. So 27. Is that right? Count ifs, we'll try it. Oh. How do you do it? You just type in greater than 15 here? Who was saying it?
Yeah, the next criteria.
Just greater than 15? I think it's greater than or equal to.
The third argument is your range, and the fourth argument.
Oh yeah, the range again and then the criteria.
Range again? Alright. something's wrong. Just go ahead and put a stop in there and see what happens. For each R, so what is R right now? R. Just can't do that. R is in B4. That's within our range. If it's numeric, between limits 26 is, so add 26 to the sum, add 1 to the count. Next. 83, that's not in there, so don't do that.
How are you stepping through a function?
I just put a little stop thing in here, and then when I went into the, here, I'll stop it. So yeah, I entered this, our little function in here, and since I put a little stop bar in here, I don't know what they're called, when I hit enter, it just stops there, and then you can start stepping through it. So yeah. I don't know why it's not working. Does anybody see? Is there anything super obvious that I'm missing? Oh, it's the average, not the number. What am I doing? Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on that?
What did you change?
I didn't change anything. When I was doing the little count ifs thing in here, it was it was the number that are between there, and I was outputting the average, and I was thinking that they were the same thing. So there's almost definitely going to be a function on the test. What you need to know with functions is passing variables by value and by reference. You can get pretty in depth with that. That's pointers from y'all, if y'all remember from C++. Does anybody have any questions on that? Is that clear with everybody? By reference and by value? No? Okay, what it is it's saying, well, within a function, if you're calling it within the Excel worksheet, it doesn't really affect anything, but like, if I'm calling it from a sub, and I say, so we're passing a minimum value as a double. So we'll say dim min as integer. So we're going to go ahead and set, I don't know, min equal to 5, max equal to 24, and then R is going to be, I don't know, range E4 to C10. And so if I type in here min, or if I type in, actually no, that has to be done up here, I think, yeah. So basically what it's doing is saying, if you type in by value, then it's just passing the valuable that's stored in min. If you pass reference, it's telling the computer they're talking about this portion of data. So it's not just saying the value, it's that portion. So if you change min within this function, and then you go on to use it somewhere else, it's been updated. So it's like, let's see if I can draw it. So like say, this is all of the computer's memory, and you have, say you say dim I, oh, what is that doing? I as, oh my gosh, stop. As integer. The computer then goes and blocks off enough data for you to store an integer variable in this spot, and it says, all right, when they say I, they're talking about that portion of data. So you might have, I don't know, what, 17 in here. But the computer sees I and it says, okay, we're pointing at this much data. So if you say by value, it takes this 17 and just passes 17. If you say by reference, it passes I to it. So if you go in, you change I, and then you use it later, the computer thinks you're pointing to I, so you've updated I. So now I is not 17 anymore. Does that make any sense? Was that a terrible explanation? Yeah, it's complicated. Just if you don't want it to change, pass it by value, which is the default, so you don't have to do anything. If you want it to change for whatever reason, if you want to manipulate it within the function, then pass it by reference. Probably. Oh, by reference is default? Okay, so then you got to type by val in there. Probably not going to be an issue on the test. It might be. If not, if you get confused, you can just set another variable equal to it and then use that variable later on. So there's a study list at the end of the PowerPoint for y'all to look at, and I'll email that out as well. So now let's see if we can delete this.
So if you run that function, it delivers an answer.
You mean like within the Excel sheet? Yeah. Oh my gosh, stop. Yeah, so you can go in here and you can type equals average in interval. Our first one was minimum, so 15, max 55. I'm sorry. 15, 55, and then the range was this. So of all the values in this range that are between these two, the average of them is 27.
Why did it give you 0 to start with?
Yeah. Yeah, if we stop here and see why. We're probably on the wrong cell. 02. Is there anything? Oh, did we write anything in there? Yeah. 02. That should work. Let's see what happens.